grab a bite. We're gonna be here for a minute. You know, I was a real picky eater when I was growing up. All sorts of stuff I was too afraid to try. Seafood, soups, anything with mayonnaise. The only meat I really ate was chicken. Other kinds grossed me out. Beef especially. I mean, if it wasn't slices from a roast my mom made in the slow cooker that was covered in gravy, I didn't want anything to do with it. Burgers, chili, tacos, all that stuff. So you can imagine the family trips to Taco Bell weren't the easiest for me. Like, yeah, there's chicken there, but I could never look past the stuff the items came with. I didn't want to ask too much. I was never too interested to actually look into it. Plus, up until I became an adult, I was only ever brought to Taco Bell like 3-4 times. So I never really worried about it. Oh yeah. But I remember one time, in the spring of 2015, we decided to pick some up on the way home from some family thing, probably band. I was feeling particularly brave that day, and hungry, and I actually got a chicken enchilada burrito. Look, sour cream, seasoned rice, red sauce. This was very out of my comfort zone for 15-year-old me. Give me some credit. It was a bit awkward eating it, you know, in that I don't know about this kind of way, but you know, I remember liking it. Oh, it's okay. It was definitely chicken. I was glad I had it, at least, if anything, to broaden my horizons a bit. Like, hey, I can get a normal item at this place instead of just like chips and cheese or cinnamon twists. I mean, they are good, but it's not a meal. That bright and sunny May 23rd, much like today, was a step towards a bigger, better me. A cheesy gordita crunch kind of me. Soft on the outside, hard on the inside, filled with beef and other assorted ingredients. I say filled with beef. This is not a lot, but you know, $4 isn't worth a lot nowadays, apparently. Now, you might wonder why I know the specific day that happened, especially when I can't remember what happened before then, and that's because that Taco Bell meal wasn't my only foray into semi-new territory that day. You see, right after I got home, I quickly took care of business, got set up in my room, and shortly after, at exactly 6 p.m. Eastern, the final Splatoon Global Test Fire had started. The Splatoon Global Test Fire was this unique style of demo, where it would only be playable at specific scheduled times. Launch the demo from your Wii U at any other time, and you wouldn't be able to go further than the title screen. Only at one of the scheduled times would you then have been able to make a player character, run through a quick tutorial segment, and be thrusted into online matchmaking for some 4v4 gameplay. These events only lasted for about an hour, except for the final test fire, which was extended for another hour due to network issues. Good thing I had a full stomach that time. While all of this was very fun and exciting at the time, what I and many other people didn't realize was that everything that happened with these global test fires would end up laying the foundation for what Splatoon would eventually become. As a game, as a franchise, and as an expression of life, both in general and in my own personal way. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to when it all began.
Take me back, back to the shack, back to the strap with the lightning strap.
You know, 2014 was a pretty decent time to be a Nintendo fan. They're a fan of their games. In general. I mean, before June, we had already gotten stuff like Bravely Default, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Professor Layton and the Azran mid-game MacGuffin Quest, Kirby Triple Deluxe, Mario Golf World Tour, Mario Kart 8, and Tomodachi Life. Though, let's be real, the 3DS did a lot of heavy lifting. Like, yeah, Tropical Freeze is an amazing 2D platformer, and Mario Kart 8 is Mario Kart 8, but also, yeah, 8. As in, roughly the amount of Wii U games released by this point in the year, with somehow less than half of those being worth giving a damn over. As nostalgic as I am for the Wii U, I'm not gonna act like it's this secret goated console or anything, because while it did fill my specific niche well, and still does to an extent, it really was living and dying by its big first-party exclusives. It's not that there was nothing, but you couldn't really be picky without being disappointed. Not like I cared, though. When I got this thing for Christmas in 2012, it was primarily with the expectations of being able to play Pikmin 3, plus other typical Nintendo franchises like Zelda, Smash, Animal Crossing. Pikmin 3 was already confirmed before the console came out, and Smash and Zelda are basically guarantees for a Nintendo console. Or so I thought. Kind of. What I'm trying to say is that even if I only get a small handful of games on a console, so long as they're games I really want to play and I'm passionate about, I'm satisfied. Like, I don't own a PS5 right now because there's not enough that's specific to that console's library that makes it feel like a worthwhile purchase to me. But if that rumored Final Fantasy IX remake comes out and it's PS5 exclusive, day one. I'm not fucking joking, and I'm not happy about it. But hey, there were still some surprises for me in that time. Pikmin 3 ended up being awesome, and at the time, I did have Smash and Zelda to look forward to, with both having been officially announced and Smash being shown off in Nintendo's 2013 E3 Direct. I know Smash 4 gets some due flack nowadays, including from myself, but the hype back then was real. I still feel that original announcement trailer and the Mega Man reveal in my bones, dude. So yeah, despite the state of things with the Wii U, I was still optimistic and excited as hell for the 2014 E3 Direct.
Please welcome Nintendo President and COO Reggie
Fils-aimé.
If you say so.
Is that fucking Robot Chicken?
Oh, great! Another Mario game!
Don't love your tone, but actually no new Mario game today.
What?
And then they announced Mario Maker 1.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3!
How about this instead?
At least they were honest, I guess. What the fuck is happening? Yeah, they pulled up this year. Not only was the presentation top-notch, what they actually showed off was just as special. Miis are finally in Smash, plus Palutena and Dark Pit. Amiibos are introduced for the first time, which would definitely not lead to problems. Some deeper looks at already announced games with Smash 4, Bayonetta 2, Hyrule Warriors, Yoshi's Woolly World, and Xenoblade X, a quick advertisement for water, and for new game reveals, we got Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Maker, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, technically Star Fox Zero, and our first glimpse at what would eventually become The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. All killer, no filler. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. Everything ranged from good to iconic. The thing about what I've listed, though, is that all the games here are spin-offs and sequels in already established IPs, or intellectual properties. Not to say that Nintendo was creatively bankrupt, more creatively confused if anything, but by this point, the Wii U had no brand new, first-party Nintendo IPs, unless you really want to count NES Remix or Nintendo Land, and that kind of just accentuates the point I'm making here. What Nintendo really needed was something to fill this missing gap. Something new. Something innovative. Something fresh. Damn, why are you looking all crazy like at me? Near the end of the presentation, the penultimate announcement in fact, we were given a 6-minute segment revolving around something we had never quite seen before. It showcased an animated teaser with these human-squid hybrids shooting ink around the Mario Kart Wii intro cinematic, a developer interview where they discussed how this new project came into being and what in particular was so unique about its gameplay, and a trailer showing off said gameplay in this bombastic and exciting fashion. With what looked to be an inventive take on team-based shooters, of all things, putting its loud and out-there personality and colorful style on full display, this is how Nintendo introduced the world to Splatoon. To give a brief on the game's basic concept, Splatoon is a 4v4 third-person shooter where you play as a squid kid, or an inkling, and shoot colored ink both at your opponents and at inkable floors and walls. Not all surfaces can be covered, mind you. Inking opponents gives the obvious advantage of doing damage and splatting them, but inking the walls and floors gives you more turf to work with, which not only slows down opponents, but allows you to swim through it and fill your ink tank, or ammo supply, by going into squid form. While swimming, you move faster and can climb walls, but can't shoot, so you'll constantly be switching between your kid form and your squid form while maneuvering in a battle. From kid to squid. To kid to squid.
You're a kid, you're a squid, you're a kid, you're a squid, you're a kid now!
The Wii U did not have a marketing problem, what do you mean?
For example, say you can only shoot ink as a person, but as a squid, you're able to perform a wider range of actions.
This says a lot about society. Some of us were born as one, not the other. Some were born and able to be one or the other, but never at the same time. But one only one of us was born to be radical.
Hey, squid!
Squid? What's that mean?
It means I'm the new guy, Dad.
I guess that makes me the giant squid, right?
With that as our main concept, we thought about different ways to expand the gameplay, and the squid idea meshed perfectly.
With the balancing act of inking as much turf as you can while still fighting the opposing team, there's a heavy emphasis on managing your two forms properly to maneuver your way through fights. A perfect example of this is with Splatoon's headlining game mode, Turf War. Both teams get 3 minutes to ink as much turf as possible, though walls aren't counted, and whoever has the most ground covered by the end is the winner. While you never technically have to splat a single enemy to win, doing so means they won't be able to spread their turf or splat you or your teammates while they respawn. Despite this, and though both teams may be in a constant state of battle during a turf war, the best course of action isn't always to splat as much as possible. Flanking has a whole other side of benefits when it comes to turf war, as one person on a team could either launch a surprise attack on the enemy in the usual shooter affair, or swim around to their base in the last 30 seconds I'm not saying that, that's stupid. Or swim around to their base in the last 30 seconds inconspicuously, ink as much turf as possible while both teams are stuck fighting in the middle of the map, and completely turn the match around. While this can lead to a fair amount of upsets, and it does sometimes feel like only the last 30 seconds of a match really matter, it only makes each move you make throughout that much more important. It can turn around for you, but if your team doesn't play well enough in the lead up to the end, you're gonna be fighting more of an uphill battle. If the other team gets too far ahead, that means less room for you to move around in, and more turf you'll have to cover to catch up. Even in other modes, where how much turf is covered doesn't matter score-wise, it's still best to ink a decent bit of ground so that you won't be stuck at a potential disadvantage later on. It's this constant push and pull of what an inkling does that is the driving force of Splatoon's gameplay, all while still being very, for lack of a better term, Nintendo. The gameplay is simple, but contains quite a bit of depth.
No matter how you play, the ink you're shooting has an effect on everyone else. You'll never feel like you're playing alone or in a vacuum.
It might sound like a lot at first, and there are other aspects I'll go over later, but the basic idea of the gameplay comes pretty naturally. Like, yeah, I'm a squid. Of course I can swim around and shoot ink and stuff. Which is funny, because the characters originally weren't even squids. They were blocks of tofu. No, really. Turns out Splatoon was just a Resident Evil 2 spinoff the whole time.
This is Nighthawk. Come in, Alpha. Alpha, do you read?
I'm over here stroking my dick.
I mean, okay, it was more a basic shape than food, but you get it.
Rather than designing the characters and then making a game around that, we instead came up with the game first, and then created characters we thought would work well with the gameplay. That's actually how Nintendo prefers to approach game design.
From there, the developers deliberated between rabbits, spacemen, Mario, likely due to Super Mario Sunshine, flood and all that, but eventually landed on squids, first as a humanoid in-between, and then as the Inklings we know them as today.
I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
Man, I wish squids were real. That brings us to the game's style, which is heavily inspired by a 90s aesthetic with just enough attitude to feel reminiscent of Nickelodeon from back in the day. The music alone. I mean, if the guitars and wailing vocals in the game's main theme, Splatak, don't make it obvious enough that Splatoon is about its style, I don't know what does. Despite the Squid Kids and cartoon appearance, the world is fairly modern, with the maps you play on being located in a warehouse, an oil rig, even a skate park. Modern. The game's more abrasive style and modern locale isn't exactly something you'd associate with Nintendo, especially back then, but that's part of what made Splatoon stick out. Sure, I love the typical stuff Nintendo offers plenty, but what I was seeing during Splatoon's initial reveal was also plenty captivating. It wasn't just a new IP, it was a breath of fresh air. After all was said and done with the E3 presentation, I ended up having plenty to look forward to in the second half of 2014, especially with Splatoon coming out next year. Being my 14 to 15-year-old self during the wait, I did have to pick and choose what I could get with my limited funds, so I had to prioritize. I got Hyrule Warriors because I was desperate for Zelda, and then, of course, Pokemon in both Smash games when they came out. Small aside, but let me remind you that Pokemon ORAS and Smash Wii U, along with the first wave of Amiibos, the Smash branded GameCube controller, and the GameCube controller adapter, all were released the same day. I didn't even get the GameCube stuff then. That shit was sold out day one. I got the Link amiibo instead. This is the first amiibo I ever got back in almost 9 years ago at this point. Which kind of worked out just because of the Hyrule Warriors compatibility, exclusive spinner weapon and all of that. Still, it was a lot, but I definitely got my money's worth. Those are stories for other times though. This video is long enough, and you do not want me to start going off about Pokemon.
On Christmas, I got Theater Rhythm Curtain Call, as I was just getting into Final Fantasy, Tomodachi Life because its online influence had me hooked, and with an eShop card I was gifted, I got Shovel Knight, back when it was one campaign and $15. That was a good car ride to Chicago, let me tell you.
Let's fucking go.
As for Splatoon itself, it took until the next General Nintendo Direct on November 5th to see more of it. But instead of more of the multiplayer, it was revealed that the game did in fact have a single-player campaign. In it, you'd go through the levels while fighting an army of octopus enemies known as the Octarians.
Squid versus octopus, nature's epic battle for supremacy.
We were so naive back then. And hey, a release window for the second quarter of 2015. Not bad at all. Going into 2015, the only new releases I got before Splatoon came out were Majora's Mask 3D and Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, and I didn't really play that much of either due to not really feeling them after some playtime, especially with Monster Hunter. Haven't touched the series since, and I don't feel bad about it. I've given it plenty of chances, and there's just no love there. So sure, not a great start for the year, but at least I still had the squids to be excited about.
What's up, can a low come up in your crib? Man, fuck you, I'll see you at work. Oh, nigga, don't hate me because I'm beautiful, nigga. Maybe if you got rid of that old yee-yee ass haircut you got, you get some bitches on your dick. Oh, better yet, maybe Tanisha will call your dog ass if she ever stop fucking with that brain surgeon and lawyer she fucking with, nigga. What? Oh, fuck.
Our next bit of info on Splatoon was in the January 14th Direct, where they talked about the game's main hub area. You could walk around, go to shops to buy weapons and gear with the money you earned from playing matches, and interact with characters that represented other players. This is also where they bring up that you technically have 3 weapons in a match, your main, as well as your sub and your special weapon that are all part of a main weapons kit. Gear is also highlighted as being able to change your Inkling stats, such as speed and strength. Fashionable and functional. Just like how I dress. Lastly, we got a month. The game's coming out in May. Hot damn.
I know I haven't really brought up anything else from the Directs other than Splatoon since the E3 presentation, and there's a good reason for that. It's not important anymore. It's just not. Don't worry, we'll come back to other stuff going on around the time and later, but from here on until then, it's nothing but Splatoon. I know that's probably what you clicked on the video for in the first place, but this is what I had to do personally. Sorry to do it to you.
We have a mother of a ripping through a major company file.
Okay, throw me some numbers.
4/1/2015. April Fool's, bitch. It's a new Nintendo Direct and some more Splatoon news. We get our first look at Ranked Battle with Splat Zones, basically King of the Hill, and they show off the Battle Dojo, a one-on-one local multiplayer where both players compete to pop the most balloons. To go a bit ahead here, I'm sorry, but the local multiplayer in Splatoon 1 sucks. Sorry if you wanted to play Turf War or Splat Zones locally, the game modes you actually want to play. Instead, you get a single Mario Party minigame. 1v1 is not Splatoon's strong suit, except when it is. Like, oh, one person can use the TV and the other the gamepad. Wow, if only it wasn't for a game mode that was as deep as a pool that won't kill Inklings via osmotic pressure. I don't know, it kinda feels like an excuse to use the Wii U for more than it's worth, which, trust me, was not a rare issue for Wii U games. Speaking of worth, Splatoon amiibo were also announced. You can scan them into the game to unlock single-player challenges and get rewards like in-game money and exclusive gear.
Leave me alone!
This was kind of a big deal. Not a lot of series had amiibos at this point, only really from Smash or Mario. Nintendo actually deciding to put amiibo out to coincide with a brand new IP like this was definitely cool to see. Just as cool, we got our final release day of May 29th in North America. With less than 2 months away, all that was left to do was wait out the time for Splatoon to finally come out. I mean, it's not like there was going to be another Nintendo Direct before then to show off any other surprises. Well, okay, there was a Direct for Xenoblade X a few weeks later, but that was specialized for a big-ass game that warrants the spotlight. Besides, it's not like Splatoon would need something like that. At this point, what else is there to really know about Splatoon? Oh.
Here, please take a look. A really good look.
This was a pretty fun Direct. For one, it was presented as if it were a science conference, showing off new findings of these curious creatures.
This particular squid can, in fact, transform into a humanoid. Eureka, indeed!
Honestly, still makes it a fun watch going back to it. All thanks to the joys of science.
Science! That's what's hidden behind the blood-spattered walls.
It's good to know that in many ways I was always like this. As the game overview part of the title would imply, the presentation mainly focused on being a good general showing of what the game has to offer. Inkling abilities, maps, the hub, weapons and weapon types. Wait, go back. The blaster was originally considered a shooter here? Yeah, that ain't right. Blasters are their own thing. That's like saying a rocket launcher is a hit scan weapon.
It's perfect for soiling pants. I mean, distant enemies.
Why did he say that? Is what I would say, but I know too well what he means.
The roller is a great weapon for advancing forward while marking turf and steamrolling opponents.
Oh, I remember when rollers were considered the brain-dead weapon. Ah, good times.
But if Inklings are one thing, it's fashionable.
Holy shit, Splatoon predicted TikTok.
Hey, what's up, guys?
They cover gear, abilities, what amiibos do, the single-player campaign, and of course, the multiplayer. All the usual stuff is shown, like the local mode and friend lobbies, but ranked mode had some interesting stuff about it. Oh, come on, I can do better than that, look! Along with Splat Zones, we'd also be getting Tower Control, a King of the Hill and Payload Fusion mode, where you'd ride the tower to get as deep into enemy territory as possible, and Rainmaker, a reverse capture the flag kind of mode, where you take the Rainmaker to the enemy's goal, or as close as you can get. However, you wouldn't be able to play Ranked until you hit level 10 in regular gameplay, and Ranked mode itself wouldn't be available for anyone until an undisclosed amount of people all reached level 10. Oh yeah, there was a Tumblr account. Yeah, that was the main social media for Splatoon back then. 2015 was a different time. Even with the unlock criteria, Tower Control and Rainmaker wouldn't be available even after that, instead coming later through updates. In fact, a lot was going to come later through updates. More maps, gear, weapons like the ink brush, matchmaking with friends. Yeah, like, not just queuing up with friends, but friend lobbies in general would be added after the fact. Surely this isn't a sign of anything, right?
It's Nintendo, what do you expect? They made Miiverse just to circumvent having to deal with stuff like Twitter, which they eventually fell back on with the Switch when they realized what hell running a social media platform is. Nintendo doesn't really like to be with the times when it comes to online stuff. And yet they made a Tumblr account for this game, before the porn ban. Good times.
With the updates though, there was one thing in particular that stood out. Like they say in the Direct, Squid are all about
big events. The Squid Research Lab proudly presents a live performance by
Weezer!
Oh, hey, please try the fish.
1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4.
Is it just me or does this look unfinished? I always thought that back when this came out. Not gonna lie, I remember thinking this was kinda cringe when I was 15. What an uncultured fool I was. I didn't even watch Love Life back then. What did I know about idols, huh? Along with music in the game being attributed to characters in the world of Splatoon, there would also be the Squid Sisters, pop stars who not only perform their songs by singing and dancing, but would also host a news program in-game that announced what maps were available at that point in time, whenever an update would be coming, and what the topic of an event called a Splatfest would be. Basically, a Splatfest was when you could pick one side or the other on a chosen topic, the example in the Direct being cats and dogs, and for a set time period, usually a day or so, both sides would battle it out in turf wars to claim dominance. Splatfests only happened every now and then, and during this time, the hub area would be set at night with a bunch of color and lights everywhere and have the Squid Sisters performing to make it really feel like a special event. Matches would have the same kind of ambience, starting with this cool jingle that made it feel more like a spectator sport. At the end of a Splatfest, you would get Super Sea Snails depending on how much you played, items that let you expand ability slots on more limited gear. Now this was exciting to me, and definitely hasn't led to significant amounts of stress in my life. With all of that covered, the Direct wrapped up by announcing one last thing. Inkling Me costumes in Smash 4. Well, so much for them getting into Smash properly. Maybe next time. Oh, and of course, there was the reveal of the Splatoon Global Test Fire. The demo itself released after the Direct, but like I mentioned earlier in the video, would only be playable at specific times. Look, I already knew I was gonna get the game at this point, so having a chance to play it early like this and be a sort of participant in online playtesting was just the cherry on top for me. After that Direct, the only thing left before Splatoon came out proper was the Global Test Fire. Along with the times listed in the Direct, they also had one more on May 23rd, the one I brought up earlier, for further stress testing. I didn't end up playing all the times that were available, because one was at 7 to 8 a.m., and that is too early for me on a Saturday, but you know I was hyped when I was. Even if it wasn't a Splatfest or anything, they still felt like a huge event to me. See, it always bummed me out when upcoming games would only have demos at places like E3 or PAX, places I was never able to go to.
I bet you $1 million that somebody went in there and did that and got a raging hard on while it was happening. Hey, what's up, Scott?
Okay, maybe it was for the better. And even though Splatoon was playable like that as well, having something at home like the Global Test Fire felt really cool. It gave us a taste of what exactly we were all in for. The concept, gameplay, art style, music, network issues, and just overall freshness. And man, the game was coming out May 29th, right around the end of my freshman year of high school. The whole lead up to and release of Splatoon just screamed, summer is here, get ready.
And so, come May 29th, Splatoon finally released to the world. Of course, I was there day one, but not with this. I actually pre-bought the game digitally during the Global Test Fire, because if you did that, you got to wear a unique shirt during the demo. That did not carry over to the main game. In hindsight, it was pretty dumb. But hey, I knew I was getting the game anyway, and that it was a primarily online experience, so I figured why not get it digitally. This physical copy I actually got last November, because it felt wrong not having it on my shelf, and for personal utility. And well, yeah, the game was out, so how was it?
It might sound underwhelming to say, but Splatoon was pretty much what I expected. I mean, it's hard to be surprised about what the game actually had to offer when they basically shared all of its features before release and had the Global Test Fire to try it out for a few hours. So it was disappointing then. Well, no, actually, it was just what I wanted. Yeah, my expectations weren't shattered or anything, but I was excited for Splatoon. The game delivering on what it showed off meant I was getting a guaranteed good time. And that was fine by me. Before I even went into any matches, I wanted to get a feel for the game and make sure I was ready, so I went ahead and played through the single-player campaign. Squid vs. Octopus. As the newly inducted member of the Squidbeak's platoon, Agent 3, you go through levels in the Octo Valley while taking on the Octarian army to save all the Zapfish that powers Inkopolis. All the while, you'll be guided by the leader of this platoon, Captain Cuttlefish, and later on Agents 1 and 2, who definitely aren't squids you see every day. You shoot, you platform, fight a few bosses here and there, all culminating in a final showdown with the leader of the Octolings, DJ Octavio. At least they didn't call him MC Octavio. That would be stupid. Who goes by MC anymore? In short though, well, yeah, it is short. Octo Valley is a brief 4 to 5 hour experience that's relatively simple, but inventive in its own right. I mean, it's no Half-Life 2 or anything, but it's still a good, fun time that even now I think holds up. Oh, also, the lore you find through the Sunken Scroll collectibles and levels reveals that Splatoon takes place on Earth thousands of years after humanity dies out, and that the only known survivor is the cat who calls the results on Turf Wars, named Judd because he was frozen by his scientist owner before everyone died. Oh well.
Hey, what was the purpose of life anyway?
Who knows? Probably some hogwash about the human spirit.
Sounds about right.
With single player out of the way, I finally felt ready to tackle multiplayer. Now you might remember that ranked battle wasn't available to start, only unlocking when enough players hit level 10. Turns out, the goal was met just a few days after release on June 1st.
We're happy to announce that because so many people who played Splatoon over the weekend reached level 10, ranked battles will be available for play starting today, June 1st, at 7 p.m. Pacific.
I don't remember if I was a part of that, but it doesn't particularly matter in my case because I mainly stuck to regular Turf Wars. I dabbled a bit in ranked to try out some of the other modes and to raise my rank more than the lowest possible, something I clearly stopped caring about in later games, but the whole idea of always having to play stuff like Splat Zones in a ranked environment was a turnoff, personally. It's not that I didn't see the appeal, it just wasn't something I wanted to stress over. At the time, at least. Still, Turf War alone was a plenty fun mode, even if it might not be the most balanced. What's that? Your team was doing really well in the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but by chance got wiped out in the last 30? Tough, you lose, balance be damned. I'll be honest, I felt like I had gotten a lot out of Splatoon back in the day, but looking back to when it came out, I didn't actually have a ton of time put in. With the first month or so, I logged about 20 hours overall, with about a quarter of it being the single player. Looking at things that way, it might seem like a bit of a disappointment, but the relatively low playtime wasn't from me not enjoying the game, but wanting more. When I said a lot was going to come later through updates, I meant that, for the better and worse. You see, a big part of Splatoon's release style was putting out frequent content updates to add more to the game. On the one hand, it was cool to see more come to the game after release for a while to keep things fresh, with new maps, weapons, and the like. On the other hand, the game didn't exactly have a ton of content when it came out, only starting off with 5 maps and 32 weapons, some of those being duplicates with a different sub and special. Eventually, this would grow to 16 maps and 91 weapons over the course of the game's lifespan, but because of the drip feed, I kind of felt fine taking my time with the game because I didn't want to run the risk of wearing myself out before the game fully developed. It also didn't help that the content we already had wasn't the most accessible. Maps rotated every 4 hours, and you'd only be able to play the 2 that were selected at a time randomly. The 2 maps were different between Turf Wars and Ranked, sure, but I wasn't playing Ranked. I could only have 2 maps at a time out of 5, and I couldn't even choose the one I wanted between them. Great.
I'm on a new level.
I get that this was done as a form of immersion to make Splatoon's world feel alive, which is something I do appreciate to an extent, but the player freedom lost from it always bugged me. With weapons, even though 32 were available from the start, not only were most of them locked behind being a high enough level, which could take a while to grind for, you would have to buy them before you could use them with the money you earned from matches. Mind you, that's on top of paying for all the different gear you'd want to use as well, and having the knowledge of later weapons being added to also worry about paying for. Some of these are pretty expensive too, like it took time to build the funds for them. Now, if I was playing Ranked at all, money would have come a lot easier, since you get quite a bit more from winning those matches as opposed to Turf War. But even then, it would still be a time sink. When it comes to gear, there was actually quite a solid selection to start. More got added later, of course, but this was one area where Splatoon was fairly fleshed out at the start. Problem was, I was a function over fashion kind of player. The styles were cool, but the abilities on gear were what I wanted mostly, and after buying a few things I felt like I needed, I was more or less set. Would have been nice to buy more, but with the amount that I wanted to play, I could barely afford the weapons I wanted to use. I'm just a squid kid, do I look like a fucking cash crab? The gameplay opportunities that weapons offered me were just a higher priority for me. All of this to say, while there was certainly a lot to like about Splatoon and the promise of more to come, the low amount of content during the initial high of its release only did so much for me. And I wasn't alone in that feeling either. Reviews for Splatoon were generally positive. It was a well-received release. However, there were a fair amount of issues people had with the game, the lack of content it started with being the main point of contention. There was some leniency considering it was a brand new IP and more would be added later on, but that only goes so far. Not every issue came from the initial lack of content though, another issue being content that was locked behind the amiibos. As cool as it was to have the Splatoon amiibos feel like they had a point, maybe locking the ability to play the single player with other weapons or other special criteria wasn't the best way to go about their inclusion. Like, gear rewards were fine and all, but the single player stuff just felt like content trimmed out of the game to get you to buy more stuff. It mildly worked on me. Others did not feel the need to buy the amiibo. They stole them. Yeah, this actually happened. Like, people in Europe didn't get their special editions because of this. And they never got caught! They're still out there!
It's working!
Perhaps the biggest point of contention with Splatoon came from how the online was handled. Like I said earlier, it's Nintendo, what do you expect? This is the first time where I will remind you that the Wii U did not have an Ethernet port built into the console. Those connection issues from the global test fire were still fairly prevalent in the game itself, and the connection strength was anything but. When it came to lobbies, you couldn't leave one until a match was finished, and you would have to leave if you wanted to change your gear or weapons. And remember, private lobbies were added after the game was out over 2 months later. Something that was never added, however, was voice chat. In-game, you could use the D-pad to tell your team, come on, and booyah, but that's it. You can't chat in public or private lobbies. Personally, I found this to be a positive. I was 15 at the time. I didn't want to deal with people's bullshit. Also because I was self-conscious about my voice and didn't want people to think I was younger than I was because my balls took forever to drop. But that's a different thing. I didn't use the voice chat in TF2 for similar reasons. Now I don't for different reasons. Besides, think of the people who'd actually be playing Splatoon, and then think about talking to them.
I own you, little bitch. You can't play this game, man. Get out of the tank, and then let's see who wins. I'm like #1 in support, so I'll kill you. Fake.
Exactly. That kind of thinking is why Nintendo purposely avoided voice chat. Well, it came more from negative experiences the developers had with voice chat in other games, and not wanting the COD lobby experience in Splatoon, but still. Want voice chat while you play? Use Discord with your friends. Or wait, it was 2015. Use Skype, I guess.
We have to do something, and we have to do it now.
I like to get my dick sucked while I'm getting high. Make a deep throat, the mouth never get.
And yeah, that was pretty much the game at launch. It was cool, fun, exciting, and certainly fresh, but that lack of content really had me in an awkward position. As much as I wanted to play more of Splatoon, I also wanted more of Splatoon. Turf War was plenty fun, and I liked what I already had with the game, but there was only so much of the push and pull gameplay loop that would stay fresh for me without updates or events. Even with the constantly updating Miiverse posts around, that made things more lively. Oh yeah, Miiverse!
That's crazy, right? And after you get your haircut, what would you do? What would you do? Anybody? You would text your bitch.
So Miiverse was that social media platform I mentioned earlier that Nintendo made for the Wii U and later 3DS to circumvent having to use stuff like Twitter. While its use as a social media platform was questionable, a number of games had built-in Miiverse integration that weaved its way into the gameplay in some form or fashion, typically to share messages or drawings.
But that's not it. When you text your bitch here in the game, it goes in real life.
I always loved this about the Wii U. Like, playing something like Super Mario 3D World, beating a level, and seeing a bunch of posts from other people who also beat the level was just really cool.
Why the fuck would I want to text my bitch when I'm tired of her in real life?
But this nigga don't like nothing, bro.
Splatoon's Miiverse integration comes in two forms. Graffiti that you'll see along the walls of maps you play on, as well as the hub, and a player's most recent post will be featured when you interact with their character in the plaza. Just because you couldn't talk through voice chat didn't mean there wasn't a way to publicly vent in the game. It's minimal, but it helps to further make the world of Splatoon feel alive, and gives the game an even greater sense of community.
Bro, mixing the game and real life, bro, is that shit not too complex?
Oh, too complex?
A world feeling alive is one thing, but keeping said world alive is another. As time went by, the updates we were promised eventually rolled out, which we would hear about through official Nintendo sources and in later Nintendo Directs. A few days after Splatoon came out, there was the March 1st Micro Direct, which after featuring Depressingly Mid, and Depressingly Mid, we'd get a glimpse at my beloved.
Current and soon-to-be Splatoon owners are about to bust.
I sure am. I'm so sorry, Bill. You know what? No, I'm not. You know I had to do it to you. We also learned of Port Mackerel being the next new map that was coming out along with the NZAP. That day? Man, quick updates. On August 17th, we got the Stay Fresh trailer, basically showing off what was new with the recently added 2.0 update, like new music, gear, maps, and 2 weapon types with the Splatling and the Slosher, the latter of which quickly dethroning the Roller as the most brain-dead weapon in the game. I say this as a semi-frequent user of them, it comes from a place of honesty. That was all luck, no skill. Ah, who am I kidding? It's never skill when you're using a slosher. In the November 12th Direct, they show off Museum Delfonsino and Mahi Mahi Resort, then announced an update coming out that day, which added a bunch more gear, and another update for the next day, which would actually add Museum Delfonsino. It's pretty interesting that they would sometimes just add things here and there, rather than do everything in big batches for seasons or something. It made these updates feel very dynamic. Although, they did say in this direct that updates would continue for at least until January, and while that did include maps, gear, and balance changes, seeing things potentially end less than a year into Splatoon's life was a bit of a shame. But they weren't done yet, as with the March 3rd direct, we got news that there would be further gameplay balances and changes still coming, as well as a later two-parter update that added more weapon kits to the game. That's as far as info in directs went, and while they didn't cover all the stuff that was updated in Splatoon, they hit almost all the main beats. Almost. You see, there's one very big part of Splatoon we still haven't covered yet, which was arguably the biggest hook the game had back in the day, at least for me. That, of course, would be Splatfest. A topic is chosen by the voice from on high, a fax machine picking up signals from the past. You are given two choices that are represented by Callie and Marie, which each have a distinct color for the occasion, and once your decision is made, you rep your team with a shirt and battle it out in Turf War. You would actually have 3 maps in a rotation during the event, with the same 3 being available for the whole 24 to 30 hours a Splatfest was usually active. There were 16 in total, with each region getting their own topics specific to their cultures. For example, with the first Splatfest that took place from June 20th to June 21st, Japan fought over whether rice or bread was better. The UK and Oceania did rock music versus pop music, and North America got cats versus dogs. The sequel was so bad that Splatoon just rebooted it themselves. And yes, that does indeed mean that the fabled Splat Tim was American this whole time. Who'd have thought?
If you don't know who my man Splat Tim is, we can't be friends. I'm sorry.
Funnily enough, Europe and Oceania did eventually get cats versus dogs, but that was their 6th Splatfest instead, while North America got cars versus planes,
oh god,
and Japan got squid versus octopus. Not like the creatures, the sushi. No, come on. Splatoon wouldn't do a race war or anything like that. One peculiar case was the 8th Splatfest, where North America had burgers versus pizza, while Europe and Oceania argued over whether or not pineapple on pizza was delicious or disgusting. This is your reminder that the results of Splatfests are not always correct. Meanwhile, Japan got land food versus seafood. You know, Japan got a lot of food-based Splatfests, huh? Like during the 13th Splatfest, they had tuna and mayonnaise versus red salmon-flavored onigiri. Bruh. I almost respect the quaintness of the topic. What did the other regions get during this, you may ask? SpongeBob versus Patrick.
I never liked you!
I 1,000 times never liked you!
Pink!
Yellow!
No, really, they actually did a SpongeBob crossover. Splatoon did a fair bit of crossovers, actually. North America even had a Transformers Splatfest before this, which, sure, I guess.
This whole thing is a fucking disaster. I feel like ass.
Oh, cause they transform like Inklings. I get it now. Japan also got a Dragon Quest themed one revolving around battle strategies. It's Japan and Dragon Quest. It doesn't have to be the most fitting. But hey, SpongeBob's nautical nonsense fits perfectly for Splatoon. The results were even the same in both regions for once, with Patrick coming out on top.
For doing absolutely nothing longer than anyone else, Patrick! This trophy's for you!
There were a couple Splatfests that had the same topic at the same time, but they were usually still region-locked. Specifically, the 2 crossovers with other Nintendo games. The Pokemon one, which argued over Pokemon Red or Blue, or Red or Green in Japan, and the Miitomo one that was fancy parties versus costume parties. Miitomo deserved better. Miitomo deserved to be better.
Fancy a big box face-off sometime.
Oh, you want to battle? I'm available. I'm blowing up like an inflatable. I'm undebatable. I'm unavoidable. I'm undebatable.
Now, I didn't participate in every Splatfest, but I played a good amount of them, though I don't remember exactly which teams I was on. I don't exactly have a record of what I did. This was before I was content-brained, after all. Like with Snowman versus Sandcastle, nowadays I'd definitely go Snowman, but 15-year-old me? I don't know. What I do remember is playing the ones I did for hours at a time, and for good reason. After all, the more you win, the more you contribute to your team's results so that you can beat the other team. The popularity vote only counted for so much. You still had to make sure the team itself was pulling their weight. The more you played, the more Splatfest EXP you got, which would increase your title. Everyone started out as a fanboy or fangirl of the team they were on, which went up to Fiend, then Defender, then Champion, then King or Queen. The higher your title was, the more Super Sea Snails you would get after a Splatfest, with the least you could get being 4 or 2, and the most being 24 or 18, depending on who won or lost respectively. And I wanted them. Those sea snails were limited resources. I wanted to make sure I could upgrade all the gear I wanted to without worrying about it. Or at least hoard them just in case and never use them like elixirs in RPGs. Because of this, I was typically focused on Splatfests when they happened and made sure to play at those times. I also may or may not have preferred one squid sister to the other at the time, and while that did not influence my decision to join a particular team to simp for them for 15 of the 16 Splatfests, it was something I did consider when results would go down. Not for nothing, but one of them losing 6 Splatfests in a row left me a bit perturbed at the time. At least it wasn't my loss streak. Yeah, something like that would never happen to me. Man. But then there was the 1 out of 16, which was in fact the final Splatfest, and the only one to be held worldwide, results and all. Callie versus Marie. This one, being the last one, was made a pretty big deal. I mean, it's pitting the two characters who've introduced, hosted, and performed at every Splatfest, having official art of them drawn for each one. Even the promotions were going hard. Mario Maker had a special level that unlocked costumes for the two depending on how you cleared the level, and Art Academy had an event where people shared Splatfest-themed art. The two idols got to work their artistic chops with each putting out a solo, Callie with Bomb Rush Blush, and Marie with Tide Goes Out. Not gonna lie, Bomb Rush Blush has grown a lot on me, but Tide Goes Out just hits different. Though, the former did get the only good Splatoon remix in Smash, so there's that.
What the fuck is this? It's music. It's music. This is garbage. It's beautiful. It's like Oscar the Grouch went in the studio.
They even released Squid Sisters amiibo before the event, which allowed you to turn the plaza into Splatfest mode whenever you wanted, for the vibes.
I remember being so worried about those amiibo coming out. I had missed out on a few amiibo before this because they sold too quick for me to buy. Ness, I remember especially being sad about missing that. I actually imported his amiibo from Japan. Only time I ever did that. I knew the Squid Sisters had that waifu attribute that people go crazy over. Definitely not why I was buying them. So I was worried they'd sell out before I got the chance to go shopping with my mom. I didn't have a car yet, give me a break. Thankfully, they were there, and I got to buy them no problem. Well, I do remember being embarrassed about it, buying figures of these cartoon squid girls and all, and I think I actually bought them in the self-checkout so I could bag them and hide them from my mom. Good times.
Everything was on the line here. Thus, from an extended time period of July 22nd to the 24th, the waifu wars were on. For the maps, there was actually a vote through email on what would be chosen based on which were most popular. Each region had their top 5 listed, but in the end it would be the same 3 for each region. Walleye Warehouse, Moray Towers, and Kelp Dome. You fuckers just had to pick Kelp Dome, huh? I hate this goddamn map. I fucking hate it! Look, the maps didn't matter. At the end of the day, it came down to cold, hard skill. As much fun as the Splatfest could be, especially this time around, there was something to prove. That my waifu was better than yours. Shit was serious. So serious that at the halfway point of the Splatfest, the song changed from the usual Ink Me Up to Calamari Incantation, the final boss theme from the campaign. Me and my trusty Aerospray MG were locked and loaded. Inkzooka blast after blast, seeker after seeker, all the while inking as much turf as possible. Call these maps Green Clean Station cause I had it covered. And in the end, Marie won. By a pretty narrow margin, too. Victory. I wasn't just a Marie King because of how I played, I was a justified Marie King. And it felt good. Like I was on my own private Splatoon island, if you know what I'm saying. It would end up being even better because it turned out that the results of the Splatfest would go on to impact the story of Splatoon 2, where Callie would end up being squidnapped and hypnotized, hey that's my kink, by the Octarian army, and Marie would need the help of some uncultured squid kid to save her and the Zapfish once again. Imagine a world where the roles might have been reversed because some of the matches here ended just a bit differently. You can also imagine a world where we got amiibo based on their designs from that campaign because holy shit, they were so good and I'm really sad that we didn't. And you know, with hindsight and everything, who really cares if one's better than the other? They're both awesome, and I wouldn't want them separated for anything. Reject Splatfest results. Return to Squid Sisters. Though I do only have Marie as a plushie and not Callie, but still. Callie's plushie is cursed and steals Pepsi. I gotta take care of myself, you know? I know it seems like I covered Splatfests more than my personal play experience, but that's because Splatfests made up most of my playtime with Splatoon back then. I'd hop on to pick a side, blast people with my Aerospray MG, and when the fest was over, I usually just waited until the next one. By the time I stopped playing, I had about 55 hours, and at least half of that was playing during a fest. 55 hours might not seem like a lot, but believe it or not, Splatoon was my second most played game on the Wii U, only second to Smash. Sure, 55 hours might be relatively low considering how many hours other people put into some games, even myself to an extent, but believe me when I say I got a lot of enjoyment from Splatoon. That said, after the final Splatfest happened, a lot of people considered Splatoon pretty much dead. Not that the servers became totally empty or anything like that, no. Even years after Splatoon came out and stopped getting content, there was a respectable amount of people still playing. You could match into a game just fine. But a large amount of people would come back primarily for Splatfests, and with no more to look forward to, a lot of people stopped playing. Admittedly, outside of 1 or 2 more sessions, I stopped playing too. Now, even back then, I was never dumb enough to call a game dead just because some interest was lost or whatever, but I mean, yeah, Splatfests were my main motivator. I still stayed away from ranked, and with only regular Turf Wars to play, the excitement just wasn't the same. The game, for me, was no longer fresh. I think it goes without saying, but Splatoon ended up being a huge success. Not only did it sell well, but it was the 6th best-selling game on the Wii U with almost 5 million copies sold. Considering the top 10 for the Wii U was otherwise Smash, Zelda, a launch title, and Red Luigi, that's certainly no small feat. Especially considering the fact that the console itself didn't even sell 14 million units. Remember, the Wii U was very much a niche console. It's no secret that the Wii U, in general, was a failure, but a lot of the people that did have one were Nintendo fans who actually wanted to play their games, myself included. Splatoon had a good chance of selling well, but again, 6th best on the console was impressive. Software sales alone, however, does not save a console. After Splatoon released, we would still get some pretty notable games like Super Mario Maker, Yoshi's Woolly World, Pokken Tournament, along with DLC for Smash, a few other things here and there, and everything going on with Splatoon. There were still things to look forward to, but not a ton. Plus, for every good release, we'd get something like a Devil's Third, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, you know, all the Scott the Woz favorites. A glance at notable Wii U games in 2016, and yeah, that's not great. Even to a Star Fox Zero defender such as myself. Like, yeah, the game has intrinsic problems to its design, I won't argue that, but I'm sorry, you not getting used to the controls until playing for 4 to 5 hours is a skill issue, I'm plain and simple. Call me Uncle Grippy, cause I be going hard with my hands in the cockpit. 2015 really was the last kind of good year for the Wii U. I mean, even when it came to E3 in 2016, they focused the event entirely on Breath of the Wild, which honestly was the right move, but at this point the game was already delayed from that year to 2017, and was announced to release on their next console. As cool as it was, especially as a huge Zelda fan myself, the writing was on the wall. Even though we wouldn't know what the Switch was until late in the year, the Wii U was basically done.
I mean, it wasn't like we didn't know things weren't good before then. Some of us were in denial, me to an extent, but the lack of third-party support, the gaps of time between major releases, and lacking features of the console itself were hard to ignore. 3DS was poppin'. 3DS had a bunch of great games, plenty to do. Fucking love this thing. I got every model except the 2DS XL, and I have no regrets. Check this out. I didn't never have the Ambassador program, but I've got something more exclusive. I got the kind of 3DS Nintendo doesn't want you to know about. Bro, I got the Gangster Edition Nintendo 3DS. Say hello to my real friend! You know we're on that shit. But the Wii U? Well, it was always a hard sell if you weren't a Nintendo fan from back then. And nowadays, since all but a couple of Wii U games have gotten ports or sequels, there's hardly a reason to get the console. At least for official reasons.
I only got 4 more games for the Wii U after Splatoon came out, and one of those was a remaster I don't like as much as the Wii version for specific reasons, and the other was a disappointment from the get-go. Definitely a few good ones I missed, but again, I had to budget. I should have gotten Woolly World instead of Color Splash, what was I thinking? Like, there were almost a full 2 years between Splatoon and the Switch releasing, and when I think back to that time period for the Wii U, it just feels largely empty and not particularly noteworthy. That's why I didn't talk about the later directs outside of Splatoon, because there wasn't really much of note for the Wii U that was new and exciting besides that. But then, of course, the Switch was revealed, hyped up, and released on March 3rd, along with Breath of the Wild. Sure, it released on the Wii U like it was always planned to, but the Switch version ran slightly better and was also on the Switch, the brand new console that you could take anywhere. Also, they gutted proper gamepad support, so the Wii U version didn't have anything cool. Like the Sheikah Slate was based on the damn thing, why couldn't you? For what it's worth though, over 1.5 million copies sold on the Wii U, so it at least got to end on a solid note, even if the Switch stole its thunder. Hell, I got it with the Switch at launch. It was my first time buying a console day one. I mean, hey, Zelda was confirmed properly this time, along with Super Mario Odyssey, promised, and apparently not so promised, third-party support, some cool RPGs, a new IP right off the bat with ARMS, which was interesting at the time at least, no more heroes, god damn Superhero 51! Yeah! And
Splatoon 2.
What? Nintendo clearly learned a lot from the Wii U, both from its successes and failures, and made sure to develop their strengths and cover their weaknesses. The Switch had crazy good marketing, a casual and conventional appeal, was simple, and it knew to bring the games. Not just first-party heavy hitters, not just third-party, just all around. The Nintendo Switch has games.
I've gotten a lot out of the Switch, certainly more than the Wii U gave me. I think I have more playtime in Smash Ultimate than everything I played on the Wii U altogether. I will say though, that I own as many Switches as I do Wii U's. For all the Switch's benefits that I just listed, that's pretty much all it has. The Switch is still lacking in a fair few ways, it's just that the strengths work very well all together. Like, it docks and is portable. It plays games, and aside from an app or two like YouTube, that's all it does. But that's all it needs to do, and it does it very well. Minus being underpowered, having a decent amount of rough ports, pointless cloud versions, endless shovelware in the eShop, low internal storage for bigger games, poor optimization by many a developer. You get my point. But even with that, the library it has that works well with the Switch is still pretty insane. I don't have my game collection here right now for reasons, but I've got a shitload of Switch games. Not strictly in comparison to Wii U either, just in general. And that library, oh, I forgot to grab Splatoon 2, for fuck. Splatoon 2.
When I said Splatoon was a huge success, I meant it. Nintendo was quick to get Splatoon on the Switch, with the second game starting development even before Splatfests on the first game ended. There was even another global test fire and everything, even a Splatfest world premiere demo. Come July 21st, 2017, a little over 2 years after the first game came out, Splatoon 2 made its debut as fresh as ever. A new campaign, new idols with Off the Hook featuring Pearl and Marina, new weapons, maps, modes, music, and of course, new updates and Splatfests. There was even a new PvE co-op horde mode with Salmon Run, where you collect eggs while fighting waves of salmon, just in case you wanted to play online without having to go against other people. Some of the time. Other times it was closed off because why the fuck not? Overall, it was Splatoon, but with more, which was actually a common concern with the game. 2 years wasn't very long, and Splatoon 2 didn't seem that much different from the original game. In reality, there were quite a lot of changes from 1 to 2 when you get down to it, and both games have their own unique feel to them. If anything, it was good to have a sequel simply because it was Splatoon on Switch. A lot of people didn't have a Wii U, so this was their first proper exposure to the world. The numbers speak for themselves. Splatoon 2 sold almost 3 times as much as the original. Clearly, it was the right choice. Splatoon 2 got a full 2 years of updates, adding more of what you'd expect from the game. maps, weapons, balance changes, and the sort. However, almost a year after release, we would also get a paid DLC expansion putting you in the high heel shoes of an Octoling trying to make it out of the deep sea metro and escape to the surface, with the campaign being aptly titled Octo Expansion. It was announced in the March 8th Nintendo Direct in 2018, right after talking about what would be added in version 3.0. Oh, and they showed off a third thing with Splatoon right after. Probably not important. Octo Expansion was a brand new single-player campaign that really pushed what the series could do. Right from the trailer, played to the catchy army drill sound of Nasty Majesty, you could tell this was gonna hit different. A dark and oppressive atmosphere blended with an 80s neon aesthetic, challenging level design made with help from the Breath of the Wild shrine designers, a charming narrative that solves racism once and for all. Shit, I've heard... Craig! You can't fucking say that! Bro, look who's reading the log. Come on. No! Wow. A hard as 8 balls secret boss, all topped with a banger OST. It's the total package. Like, you can skip the multiplayer and base campaign for Splatoon 2, just play Octo Expansion and you're set. It's like the Halo 3 ODST of Splatoon, I'm not even kidding. Seriously, if you haven't touched any Splatoon at all, it's worth it, trust me. And you can get the second game for pretty cheap nowadays, and with the DLC added on top of that, it really isn't a high barrier of entry.
Oh, I haven't even told you about the best part, the climax of the whole thing. It's actually, it's hard to describe. I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but it changes you forever.
And after you beat it, you can play as an Octoling in the multiplayer. I told you, this expansion solved racism forever. Wait, no.
But it doesn't matter anymore. Everyone's learned that it's not a person's color that counts, it's the kind of person they are inside.
Think they'll ever learn that lesson in the real world?
Yeah, when humans get as smart as mushrooms.
Kind of whack how they have less hairstyles available, though. Not sure what the thought process there was.
We got more hairstyles than 2 hairstyles.
Really? Well, how many do you guys have?
Nigga, what?
I remember when 2 first came out. It was right around my last time going to band camp and was starting my senior year of high school, so I blazed through the base campaign the night before. I don't remember the pain of sleep deprivation from doing that, which was otherwise all of my senior year of high school, so I think it worked out. Good thing, too, I was section leader for trombones that year. Octo Expansion, meanwhile, came out the summer I got into Danganronpa. We don't talk about that summer. I wish I could talk more about good times and my experiences with Splatoon 2, but I didn't actually play a lot of it. Despite having quite a bit more to 2 than the original game did, I ended up having about the same amount of playtime for both, half of 2's being single player. Octo Expansion went hard, what can I say? I still didn't want to put up with ranked. Salmon Run was cool, but not being available at all times was annoying, and honestly, I just didn't care too much about Splatfest this time around. There were 2 years of monthly Splatfests that were bigger and flashier than before, even special ones for holidays and seasons, and I played like 4 of them. I don't know why, it's not like the topics were bad or anything, but I think I was burned out from doing them in the first game. It had only been like a year. The desire wasn't there, and because of that, along with having a hard time getting into other parts of the game, I didn't really play Splatoon too much. At least, relatively speaking. Which honestly frustrated me because I wanted to be more into Splatoon. I loved the world, the lore was interesting, the aesthetics were on point, it's just... the gameplay never fully clicked like I wanted to for 2.
Now that said, when it came to the final Splatfest this time around, I definitely pulled up. Chaos versus order. Who needs to fight over waifus when you can fight over philosophies?
I solve practical problems.
Shut the fuck up. We're intellectuals now. This cephalopod shit is real. This was a worldwide Splatfest held over 72 hours, with special sparkly ink, all the unique versions of the Splatfest exclusive map Shifty Stations returning, and different battle music for each day. I was on Team Order, though I will fully admit that I was wrong and would definitely go Team Chaos now regardless of what the results were. I've got a real fuck it we ball attitude now, you know? Regardless of whatever team you're on though, it was awesome. Especially on the final day, when the battle music was the climax music from Octo Expansion, and you could use the special from it when the beat drops. Shit was incredible. I didn't even care that Chaos won and my team lost the Splatfest. It was just such a good time. After that, Splatoon 2 cooled off. It still got updates for balances and bug fixes, but in terms of new Splatoon content, that was it for a while. Well, kinda. Remember what the world was like in 2020?
Mask on, fucking mask on. Mask on, fucking mask on.
Well, since we were all stuck inside for a while, Nintendo actually did a few extra Splatfests. 3 of them were redos, one of them being for Halloween, but the last one was new and themed around Mario power-ups. Pretty cool of them to do.
I don't know about the others, but I made sure to play the redo of Mayo vs. Ketchup, because the original was one of the few I actually played, and my side, Team Ketchup, lost. I wanted to right the wrongs of the past, because I didn't care what the laws at the time said. Ketchup was better than mayo. Sad to say though, I lost like 5 times 10 battles and didn't win any. I tried, I grinded really hard. Never happened. Never even got to see it times 100. But we won, so oh well. All was right in the world. I was actually going to do a video about it. I think I still have the footage too, so who knows? Maybe someday.
But that was actually it for Splatoon 2. Afterward, Splatoon fans would have to chill with what they had until news of a new game arrived. Well, there was also Splatoon being represented in Smash Ultimate, which is dope as hell, even if it mainly represents how the series was before Octo Expansion, but it's not primarily Splatoon content, you know? It's like considering Smash a Pokemon game just because there's Pokemon stuff in it. It's not the same. Many thought that it would be until the next Nintendo console for a new Splatoon to come out, since the second game was already there. Plus, it wasn't like the Switch was lacking games to play in the meanwhile. There didn't need to be another Splatoon on the Switch. And yet, come the Nintendo Direct of February 17th, 2021, Mario, F-Zero, Pokemon, Splatoon! Yo! Alright, Splatoon 3, let's go. I'm excited for this. Little tiny salmon fella. Little buddies. This looks fucking cool. I hope this sort of takes over after Octo Expansion, because I loved Octo Expansion. If we get more single player stuff like that, I am so excited for this. And I mean, after Splatoon 2, can you, I mean, they've got multiplayer down. I'm not worried about that. In a desert though, that's okay. I hope we get to know a lot about this. I'm actually super excited for this. Oh, is this like a desert town? Time to go back to the old squid life. Whoa. Is this what chaos yields? Soccer crab. Was that the ink bazooka? From Splatoon 1? Oh, I loved that weapon. Back into the ink, baby. Next year. Oh well. Yep, Splatoon 3 was real and on Nintendo Switch. Despite being quite a few years after Splatoon 2 originally released, certainly longer than the time between 1 and 2, while there was still a lot of excitement, some people expressed how they felt another game was unnecessary and questioned why Nintendo were making another on Switch. While true, a second game on the Switch wasn't necessary, those people also underestimated how big Splatoon had gotten. Again, Splatoon 2 sold over 13 million copies, around as much as the Wii U itself did. But that's total worldwide numbers, and while that's certainly good in its own right, looking into how the game did in Japan is where it gets interesting. While exact numbers by region are hard to come by, Splatoon 2 did end up being the first home console game to sell over 2 million copies in Japan since Wii Party. What? Wii Party?
Everybody know ain't no party like a real party, so.
In other words, the first game to do so in 8 years. Point is, Japan really loves Splatoon. That's why they get all the cool merch and we don't. Not him. To prove my point and cut to the chase, Splatoon 3 came out on September 9th, 2022 to some pretty insane numbers. In the first 3 days alone, it sold almost 3.5 million copies domestically, becoming the fastest selling game in Japan ever. God damn. By the end of the year, not even 4 months later, it's revealed that the game sold over 10 million copies worldwide. And none of that includes the DLC expansion it also got, a single-player roguelite story mode called Side Order. Yeah, just like the Cali vs. Marie Splatfest, turns out Chaos vs. Order also impacted what the third game was going to be like, with Order being reserved for the DLC and Chaos being the style of the main game. And thus, chaos ensued. Remember everything I said that was new with the second game? That goes for Splatoon 3 as well, and then some. You have a new campaign, Return of the Mammalians, taking a lot of gameplay beats from Octo Expansion, and having the final battle actually just being Sonic Adventure 2. Chaos indeed.
Chaos.
We've got new weapon types with the Stringer, a bow and arrow type deal, and the Splatana, fast and close range sticks with sword beams like in Zelda. I honestly love both of these, but especially the Mint Decavitator, yes, that's a toothbrush, for being a big fuck you kind of weapon that gets good ink coverage, hits decently hard, and has an extra long lunge that's great. It goes especially well with the new movement tech, being able to squid surge up a wall after charging to shoot yourself up it, as well as being able to wall jump and dodge roll out of your team's ink, with doing so also giving you a bit of armor. I love good movement tech, and this just makes the average interaction in Splatoon 3, although tougher to manage, all the more enjoyable for me, which is good and needed for how flat and open the maps are here. I don't know what happened, but map design in 3 is probably the weakest in the series. Not that there aren't good maps, both old and new, but a lot of them don't feel as well thought out as they used to. You have new movement tech that complements vertical level design so well, and said vertical level design is instead played down with how the maps are made. Even Flounder Heights from the first game doesn't feel as tall as it used to. Why'd they do this? Maps are the biggest issue, though, and really the only thing I'd say isn't at least up to par or improved from the other games. A good example of that is this being the first time where the game at launch actually has a good amount of content, even with all the updates to come after. All the gear, weapons, maps and modes for multiplayer, the campaign, salmon run, and table turf battles for an extra minigame with some depth. There's even season passes to go through, but they're entirely free and not at all necessary to do, unless you want a GameCube, which I do. The only thing to actually pay for in the game are the DLC expansions, which gives you access to Splatoon 1's hub area, as well as Side Order, that roguelite single-player mode I mentioned earlier that has you going up randomized floors while upgrading your character to potentially absurd levels. All in the name of defeating homophobia, but not schizophrenia. You also get the Splatoon 2 hub area once you beat it. Real nice. Truth be told, I wish the mode had a little more to it, like co-op, or more floors, or types of challenges to do, or like an endless mode, because I really like Side Order's gameplay, and I wish I had more to do to keep me playing past the 20-hour mark. I don't want to go back to online, they're all mean in spawn camp too much. I keep getting quick play flashbacks. Luckily, Salmon Run's back. This time being available all day, every day, further proving that limited availability in these games doesn't have to be a thing and is total bullshit. It's immersive. It's annoying. They also added the extra wave that can sometimes happen, where you'll have to fight a King Salmonid as a sort of raid boss. You don't even have to beat him to win the shift, but doing so can net you more scales to spend on rewards. That alone can be tough. But then there's the Triumvirate, which has you fighting all 3 of the King Salmonids at once, which is just as hard as it sounds. There's also special events that happen, such as the Big Run, where Salmonids invade a multiplayer map and the atmosphere becomes all apocalyptic and shit, which is really cool. But also, it's kind of a shame that technically half of the game's Salmon Run stages are limited to these events that only run for a couple of days each. But speaking of limited events, Splatfests of course make their grand return, this time having 3 teams instead of 2, being represented by the idol group of this game, Deep Cut, with Shiver, Fry, and Big Man. Yeah, he's a manta ray. He's still apparently able to participate in Turf War 2, don't ask me how that works. 3 teams also means a new mode during Splatfests called Tricolor Turf War, where instead of being a 4v4v4, is a 4v2+2, with the 4 defending in the middle, and the other teams of 2 trying to overtake them. The attacking teams can also grab an Ultra Signal to get environmental assistance for their team. Only one of the attacking teams has to have the most turf covered for both of them to win, so stop going for me when I'm trying to get the signal! Tricolor only becomes available in the second half of a Splatfest, as it's meant for the team in the lead by the halfway point to have to defend their spot. Originally, only the leading team could defend and vice versa, but later they made it so that you're either attacking or defending at random, and only get a bonus depending on how your team is doing at the halfway point. I actually liked the old way more, it felt more meaningful to me, but I get why this was done. Especially when most of the Tricolor versions of maps favor the defending team. Turf War already has balance issues, this shit does not help. I hate it, I hate it. I was doing so good at the end. And that's the worst part. I was doing so good at the end. That's when it matters for Tricolor. I mean, for Turf War in general. And we still fucking lost. It was still that, like, Now, as I'm writing this, Splatoon 3 is about at the end of their Splatfests, and I'd actually like to cover them more extensively in another video, so I'll save discussion of the specifics until then. But I'd be remiss to not talk about Grand Festival here. Splatoon 3 had 2 main years of support, and at the end of it was the biggest event the series had ever seen. There was a special big run right before it with a global golden egg quota that we ended up meeting by more than twice the amount. It helped that the unique venue map for it was basically designed to farm golden eggs, all the while everyone got to use overpowered Grizzco weapons. Shit went crazy, and that wasn't even for Grand Fest itself. The actual Splatfest event was held over 3 days, revolving around the question of what's most important to you? Past, present, or future? It's a trick question, they're all important, but long story short, I ended up on Team Future. All the old Splatfest songs came back during regular Turf War, plus a couple extras, both old and new. Tricolor was also available the whole time, with the first 2 days cycling through each previous Tricolor stage. However, on the final day, you got a completely original Tricolor stage, paired with a huge mashup song of the 3 idol groups from every game, with the song changing at the last minute, depending on if a team was able to get a second Ultra Signal. Oh, it even shows their icon on the top. Oh, that's awesome. All the meanwhile, you would be able to go to a special hub area, which was a festival venue where you could see the Squid Sisters, Off the Hook, and Deep Cut all performing live versions of their songs at the same time. It was filled with so many cool details and posts from other players, all just for a 3-day only event. Well, you can go back to it if you have certain amiibo and watch the song performances, but it was really something special. This really was the ultimate Splatoon event. They fired on all cylinders. In the end, Past won because, of course, the team with the Splatoon old heads and veterans were gonna win more of their matches. Like, I get someone had to hit the limit for the sake of it, but come the fuck on, man. Despite being on Team Future myself, no amount of foresight could have prepared me for my team's results. You know, usually when you're feeling sick, they say you're looking a little green, but I'm not seeing any green at all. I won my times 100 matches. I don't know where the fuck y'all were at. Though I don't know, maybe there's a reason that this was my stream thumbnail for the last day of Tricolor. Refreshments! Yeah, cool special. How does it feel to have your entire fucking existence deleted by one weapon? I know what it feels like, bitch. I've been going through it all night. It's too early to tell what impact the Grand Festival events will have on the future. The future? But I'm just glad I got to experience such an incredible event celebrating how far Splatoon had come as it happened before it all burned down. Oh, you thought I meant that metaphorically. No. If it's not clear already, I love Splatoon 3. I made it a point to try and get into Splatoon like I wanted to before 3 came out, and while I still need to dive into Ranked, that's otherwise exactly what I've done. I've been playing the shit out of it since it came out. Over 400 hours total is a pretty big step up in my case, more than twice what I put into the other 2 games combined. That's nothing. I've got 3,000 hours in Splatoon 3. Get on my level. You mean in 3 years? You mean more time than I've played TF2 in 10 years? Listen to yourself. Look at yourself.
I told him, suck my dick.
Kill yourself. Splatoon 3 might not have been totally necessary, and fans do have their problems with the game, like with the map design, but you can very much see why they made it. Splatoon's as big of a success as ever, and I'm sure as shit glad I got to enjoy the world of Splatoon as much as I have this time around. But wait a minute, all of the success for the franchise is great and all, it's nice to see Splatoon as big as it is now, but what about the first game? Wasn't it still playable when 2 came out, let alone 3? Well, for all the success the series later had, as well as Nintendo with the Switch, it had to build on what already existed. And when you move on from what once was, that becomes the past. As much as we may want to dwell on the past, eventually, the time may come where you have to deal with the reality of the situation. The Wii U never did well, and was a thing of the past. Nintendo was fairly quick to start distancing themselves from the console, as a few months after the Switch released, they announced that they were shutting down Miiverse on November 8th that year, the day before I turned 18, in fact. Thankfully, everything was posted and archived online. That's why I still have some of my old posts. But with the service itself gone, any sort of Miiverse integration with Wii U or 3DS games would no longer work. Kind of sucked in both cases, with the Wii U having more games with direct integration in them, and the 3DS itself still having some life in it. I mean, that got notable releases for at least 2 more years. There wasn't even any sort of saved database for any of the games to pull from, it was just dead. Some games, however, had more foresight than others in regards to a Miiverse-less environment. Case in point, Splatoon. There's a number of default posts that are used in place of the ones from Miiverse if a connection can't be made. You can even see some of these drawings in pre-release footage. However, when it came to posts you'd see on players in the hub, those were gone. After Miiverse shut down, the plaza became a lot more quiet. The default images were nice to have, but it just didn't hit the same. A big part of the game's charm was simply gone. But hey, on the bright side, since the later games didn't use Miiverse, they should be able to keep posts active for a lot longer, right? Oh. Miiverse shutting down was a shame, but it at least made sense. That platform must have been a nightmare to manage from day one, and it wasn't carrying over to the Switch, so Nintendo closing up shop in that way was somewhat reasonable. Speaking of closing up shop...
What if I bought other stuff?
Don't buy other stuff.
Yeah, in a much more unfortunate situation, in February of 2022, a year after Splatoon 3 was revealed, Nintendo announced that they would be closing the eShop for Wii U and 3DS on March 27th, 2023. You could still re-download stuff for an undisclosed length of time, but the ability to purchase new games would be gone. I kinda figured back then that since those consoles and the Switch all had an eShop that you could link funds between them, that they would have been around for a lot longer. But apparently, Nintendo doesn't have that kind of foresight, despite going through a similar scenario with the Wii. Can't wait for the Switch too! At the very least, there was a whole year heads up beforehand, but goddamn, what a shame. It's not like all those games are getting lost to time or anything, because Wii fans are smarter than that, but the convenience lost is rough. Now, what did this mean for Splatoon? Not much, actually. You couldn't buy the game digitally afterward, but there was never any paid DLC with the game, and you can still update games no problem, so you could buy secondhand just fine, and for a good price too.
I can attest to that.
Despite important features of the Wii U decaying around it, playing the original Splatoon was still perfectly possible, which people did. But why? I mean, Splatoon 2 and eventually 3 was available to play. Why stick to the original if it wasn't getting Splatfests or updates and was on a dying console? It might not seem like it, but the original Splatoon... Fuck it, I'm just gonna call it Splatoon 1. It doesn't have a 1 in the title, but you know what I mean. Fucking Pikmin logo redesigns got me questioning too much. Splatoon 1 very much has its own style, and plays quite a bit differently from its successors. The specials are way different, some of the weapons play differently to how they do later, the maps are different, especially compared to Splatoon 3, the gamepad is and always was different, Splatoon 1 is just different. Plus, some people are good with what they have. It might be hard to believe, but some people didn't have a Switch, yet still had a Wii U and wanted their Splatoon fix. Nostalgia's also a factor. Maybe some people did get a Switch, but weren't interested in a Splatoon sequel, or tried them, but weren't into them as much as the original. I kinda had that problem with 2, honestly. Whatever the case is, Splatoon 1 still had a player base, both casually and competitively with ranked. For a game that was getting fairly old, was stuck on a console like the Wii U, and had 2 sequels, it was in a pretty respectable spot. Then, come March 3rd, 2023, a little before the Wii U and 3DS eShops closed, something weird happened. Both Splatoon and Mario Kart 8's online servers, out of seemingly nowhere, shut down. At the time, this is what Nintendo support had to say. We have identified vulnerabilities with online play for this network service and have begun temporary emergency maintenance. We expect an extended maintenance duration while we address these issues and have not determined when online play will resume. We sincerely apologize for this inconvenience and appreciate your understanding. Inconvenience indeed, as this shutdown lasted for a solid 5 months before the servers finally came back up. Basically, the problem was that there was a way for people to hack into your console when playing online together, and the games needed an update to fix the problem. What about other games affected by this vulnerability that didn't get updated? Tough. This would end up being the final update both Mario Kart 8 and Splatoon would officially receive. A bigger concern, when the servers went back up, Nintendo support also gave this message. If further issues occur which make it difficult to continue supporting online play, we may have to discontinue the online play service for the Wii U games Splatoon and Mario Kart 8 at short notice. A bit odd that it would only shut down for these games specifically, since other games were affected, but they were the 2 most popular games on the console, so whatever. Still, if potentially one more issue like that happened again, it might spell out the end for Splatoon 1. And Mario Kart 8, I guess. Deluxe existed, they'd be off just fine, it's better anyway. Thankfully, it never came down to that, because Nintendo decided instead to shut down the Wii U and 3DS servers altogether. Yep, only 2 months later, on October 4th, Nintendo tweeted out that online play, communication, and almost all online features on both consoles would be ending in early April, the actual end date being April 8th, 2024. No more seeing people in your friend lists being active, no more Light vs. Dark and Kid Icarus Uprising, no more Mario Kart 7 or 8 lobbies or tournaments, no more laggy Bayonettas in Smash 4. No more laggy Bayonettas, no more For Glory, no more laggy Bayonettas, no more online Ganon, no more laggy Bayonettas, no more online Smash 4, no more laggy Bayonettas. No more messaging your friends through Swapdoodle. No more visiting Dream Suites or your friends' towns online in Animal Crossing New Leaf. I could go on, really. I don't remember that one. And of course, no more ranked or turf wars in Splatoon. It was especially bad for Splatoon 1 to lose its online, because there was no alternate way to play those modes without online thanks to lack of foresight. Not locally or even with a LAN mode, you just couldn't play them anymore. All you had left was the single-player campaign, the local 1v1 mode, amiibo stuff, and chilling in the now silent hub. And it won't be long until Nintendo bans that as well. Losing online multiplayer was bad enough, but losing Splat Zones, Tower Control, Rainmaker, and Turf War entirely, the bread and butter of the game, what made it stick out and feel fresh in the first place, was heartbreaking.
The writing had been on the wall for a while, a good few years even, but it didn't start to hit until then that it was almost time to say goodbye for good. Not just to the consoles, but to the games we played on them, to what we were able to experience because of them. Sure, you could go back and play a lot of these games, and even just in a stripped-down state to relive some of the memories, but with the online functionality gone, it'll just never be the same. Though, even if it were still around, I'm not sure it would be the same anyway.
The flow of time is always cruel. Its speed seems different for each person, but no one can change it. A thing that doesn't change with time is a memory of younger days. In order to come back here again, play the Minuet of Forest.
Well, you know what? Nintendo be damned. If they were gonna shut down the servers for all of these games, and Splatoon 1 was going down for good, I was gonna make sure to cover all my bases and get my mileage in the end. Turf War is all well and good, but I never made my mark when it came down to ranked. I hardly dabbled in it back in the day, and if I had let these servers go down without an honest attempt at getting the highest rank possible, I knew I was gonna regret it for the rest of my life. So, I made a vow. Before April 8th, 2024, in the last few months of Splatoon 1's lifespan, I was gonna become an S rank Splatoon player.